Well, let's discuss this further, the situation in Egypt. I'm joined now by Ebrahim Deen, a researcher with the Afro-Middle East Center. Thank you for being with us. Ebrahim, let's start with the context of this, because it's been a few bloody months. In December, another attack killed 30. And there's a bigger history here of the Copts saying that they are constantly attacked and marginalized in Egypt. Just put this in the big picture for us.
Okay, thanks for having me. I think, to contextualize it, we need to look historically. The Copts make up 10% of Egypt's population and have historically been marginalized. Following the 2013 coup against Mohamed Morsi, many believed that the Copts supported the coup, and so this marginalization increased, subsequently. And it didn't help that the Coptic Archbishop, sanctioned the coup. What's happened since is, there is the normal discrimination that the Copts face, but since December there's been, an increase in militancy, specifically from the Islamic State group. So we saw the Cairo bombing in December, we saw the 7 assassinations in January, February, and we saw this, this recent abominable act, or actions. And what we're seeing is ISIS trying to gain recruits, but it's losing territory in Iraq, it's losing territory in Syria, and so it's using this to try and gain recruits. But in actual fact, in my opinion, this may actually be counterproductive, especially the lethality of these horrendous actions, and it actually may result in ISIS losing recruits and losing appeal.
Why? Just because of the sheer horror around this?
I think so. I think there is the discrimination, and the economic statistics do point to the discrimination and marginalization. But I think most Egyptians, especially within the political mainstream, view these actions as abominable, as horrendous. And many want to try and sort this discrimination out. It's proving a lot more difficult than initially thought.
I was going to ask you about ISIS in Egypt, because we know that ISIS loves to take responsibility for everything, and we're not sure how they operate in different countries, because there may be an independent group that then affiliates itself with ISIS. But you are suggesting that IS in Egypt is closely associated with the mother body, if I can say it like that.
ISIS in Egypt is one of the more potent of ISIS's franchises. But in saying so, ISIS in Egypt is around 2,000 to 3,000 fighters. The Egyptian military reports that it's killed over 2,500 people since the start of its operation Desert Storm, which kind of shows that this scorched earth policy that the Egyptian government is using is actually causing people to join ISIS. So, the big issue is the Sinai Peninsula. Many of the Bedouin don't have citizenship. There's no development in the Sinai, and the Egyptian military has indiscriminately bombed much of the Sinai up. And, this has forced people to get closer to ISIS. And so we're having this circle of violence, an ISIS bombing, then the Egyptian military killing much more ISIS, killing indiscriminate attacks on ISIS or supposed ISIS targets, which results in much more civilians being killed and then more joining. And so there's a circle of violence. It's a militarization of what ostensibly is a political crisis. What
do you think of the Copts' claim that the government doesn't take them seriously enough, their protection?
I think it's, perception, because you're a marginalized group, perception does, play a big role. I think CC is big.
But you're pointing to action, I guess, on behalf of the government.
I think the CC sees them as a very important part of its constituency. And so action to protect Coptic Christians has been much more than action to protect any other grouping in Egypt. So yes, perception is there, and you do have the micro discrimination, discriminations and marginalization. But in terms of policies, Egypt under CC seems to be actually much more supportive of Coptic rights, specifically because CC sees the Copts as an important cog, or as an important constituency, especially since he's lost support from almost all sectors within Egypt, the liberalists, the leftists, the youth groupings, the Brotherhood. And so he sees Coptic Christians as one of the fallback constituencies.
Egypt is so fascinating because we had years of military rule, then the Muslim Brotherhood democratically elected, although many believe they weren't democratic. They were ousted. How would you compare ISIS ideology in relation to a group like that, the Muslim Brotherhood?
The Muslim Brotherhood is a participatory Islamist party. It's, it's ever since the 1970s it renounced violence. It participated in the past, in elections since 1984. Very democratic. Non-violence is actually one of the key principles that it abides by. And, what's happened is Sisi has used this ISIS threat, this paranoia about political Islam to actually include the Brotherhood in this threat. And the Brotherhood hasn't yet responded violently, I don't think would. But what's happened is because this crackdown on the Brotherhood, there's roughly 10 to 15,000 prisoners, political prisoners. Because the crackdown has been so wide, many youth have become disillusioned with the Brotherhood's non-violent ideology and have decided to join ISIS. So it's a political, problem in Egypt, and this militarized solution which Sisi is looking at is actually worsening the problem.
So like you've outlined, a fertile ground for recruits. Final question. Could this be linked to the Pope's imminent visit? What does it mean for that visit?
I think the attack is not necessarily linked to the Pope's visit, because it's this process or this strategy that has happened since December. What it means for the visit, though, is it makes the visit more critical. It would see the Pope is scheduled to visit the Coptic Archbishop and the Grand Mufti of Al-Azhar. And so it does increase the salience of the visit, but the visit is not necessarily what influenced this attacks. But in saying so, there will be stepped up security for the Pope's visit now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, thank you so much for your analysis tonight. Egypt, really a fascinating story, and it has been a bloody few months. And the latest, that double bombing on Palm Sunday yesterday. That was Ebrahim Deen of the Afro Middle East Center.